Good morning. Okay, so this is our last day of practice over changing fractions, decimals, and percents. So after you do this, you're going to do the Take 3 practice for a grade. So make sure you have all of your notes out. You should have fractions, decimals, and percents day 1 from either last Friday or Monday. You should have your notes from fractions, decimals, percents day 2 from Tuesday or Wednesday, and then these notes as well. So make sure that you use all of your resources to help yourself on that little practice quiz. Okay, so first thing we're going to look at is we're converting 65% to a decimal and a fraction. I think it's easiest to first write your percent as a fraction. So I'm going to write 65% as a fraction. We know a percent is out of 100. So I know that 65% means 65 hundredths. So if we think about place value with our decimals, this is the tenths place and this is the hundredths place. So 65 hundredths would be 0.65. Now with a fraction, remember you have to reduce to lowest terms. So as soon as you put that number over 100, you want to make your division ladder, and we're going to divide 65 and 100. Now remember, any numbers that both end with 5 and 0 can be divided by 5. 65 divided by 5 is 13, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So this answer would be 13/20. On your practice quiz today, make sure that you box all of your answers. I also love it when you highlight your answers because that makes my grading go a lot faster. Okay, next one, we've got 8%. I'm going to start with my fraction. I think that's easier. I know a percent is out of 100. So no, 8% means 8 out of 100. Now, going back to the decimal, this fraction is read 8 hundredths, tenths, hundredths. If this fraction is read 8 hundredths, the 8 has to go in the hundredths place, which means you need a 0 placeholder in front of the 8. So that answer is 0.08. Now we need to reduce our fraction. So you put the numerator and denominator inside a division ladder. I know I can divide both of those by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Remember, it takes 4 quarters to make $1. So 4 times 25 is 100. So this fraction reduces to 2/25. So this is 8 hundredths, and 2/25 would be your two answers for 8%. 20%, again, I'm going to start with my fraction. I know a percent is always out of 100. So that fraction is read 20 hundredths. So I'm going to write my decimal 20 hundredths. Now I'm going to come over here and make a division ladder. I know that numbers ending with zeros can always be divided by 10. So 20 divided by 10 is 2. 100 divided by 10 is 10. Now I have two even numbers. Even numbers can be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 20 hundredths reduces to 1/5. So 20% is equal to 20 hundredths and 1/5. (13.5%). So this one is a little bit different. If you have a decimal in your percent, the first thing you're going to do is move that decimal 2 places to the left. Now my decimal is sitting in front of the 1. So my decimal is going to be 0.135. Now, if we think about place value, this is the tenths, this is the hundredths, this is the thousandths. So this is 135 thousandths. So I'm going to put 135 over 1,000. Now I'm going to make a division ladder. I have numbers ending with 5 and 0. so I know I can divide by 5. 135 divided by 5 is 27, and 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. So this fraction reduces to 27/200ths. So 13.5% is equal to 135 thousandths is equal to 27/200ths. If you have 3 digits in your percent, you are going to add a decimal behind that number. That's a whole number. So with a whole number, the decimal always starts behind the number. We're going to move that decimal 2 places to the left. So my decimal is going to be 1.80, also read as 1 and 80 hundredths. 1 and 80 hundredths. I'm going to reduce 80 and 100. Numbers ending with zeros can be divided by 10. Even numbers can be divided by 2. So this reduces to 1 and 4/5. Don't forget that whole number 1 sitting in front of that fraction. So 180% is equal to 1 and 80 hundredths is equal to 1 and 4/5. If you have a decimal in the percent, you have to slide it twice to the left before you can start. Now, I slid it once to the left around the 0. I had to slide it one more time to the left, which means I'm going to have to put another 0 in front. So notice now we've got 1, 2, 3 zeros in front of that 5. 1, 2, 3 zeros in front of the 5. So place value, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So this decimal is read 5/10,000ths. You're going to write the fraction exactly like you read the decimal. 5/10,000ths. Then we're going to reduce it. Numbers ending with 5 and 0 can be divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then we're going to add 3 zeros. So this fraction reduces to 1/2000th. So 5/100ths% equals 5/10,000ths as a decimal equals 1/2000th as a fraction. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're starting with a fraction. We're going to turn it into a decimal and a percent. The first thing you always want to do is get this number over 100. So if you look at your denominator, we know that 10 times 10 is 100, and 9 times 10 is 90. So that is read 90 hundredths. 90 hundredths. 90 hundredths equals 90%. So 9/10ths equals 90 hundredths equals 90%. First thing you want to do with your fraction, if you're starting with a fraction, is get that number over 100 if you can. 5 times 20 is 100. 2 times 20 is 40. So this fraction is read 40 hundredths. This decimal is read 40 hundredths. 40 hundredths equals 40%. So 2/5 is equal to 40 hundredths is equal to 40%. Now, if this denominator is 200, we can't get that to be a 100 or a 10. But think about the way that we read decimals. We read decimals as either tenths, hundredths, or thousandths. So what I can do is I can multiply to make this denominator 1,000. 200 times 5 is 1,000, and 11 times 5 is 55. If this fraction is read 55 thousandths, then I have to write the decimal 55 thousandths. Think about place value. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. If the fraction is 55 thousandths, the last digit has to go in the thousands place. So I'm going to kind of work backwards. If the last digit, if this 5 has to be sitting in the thousands place, then my first 5 is going to be here, and this is going to have to be a 0 placeholder. Now, to go from the decimal to the percent, remember we move that decimal, make that a bigger decimal, to go from the decimal to the percent. Now we're going to go the other direction. Now we're going to move it 2 places to the right to go from the decimal to the percent. So the percent would be 5.5%. That was a lot of work. So 11 200ths equals 55 thousandths equals 5.5%. Now remember all that dividing we did in class? If the denominator, like 40, is not a factor of 10, 100, or 1,000, this is when we have to do numerator divided by denominator to turn that into a decimal. So numerator divided by denominator. Then you add your decimals and 3 zeros. So 40 cannot go into 7. 40 goes into 70 once. 1 times 40 is 40. Remember, you can drop a number. Look at your 4 and your 30. How many times can 4 go into 30? Well, 4 times 7. If 4 times 7 is 28, then 40 times 7 is 280. You subtract and get 20. Drop that last 0. Now look at your 4 and your 20. We know 4 times 5 is 20, so 40 times 5 is 200. All right, so here's my decimal. I'm going to put that over here. 0 and 175 thousandths. So 7/40 equals 175 thousandths. Now, once you've got your decimal, it's super easy to convert to the percent. All you have to do is bloop, move that decimal 2 places to the right. There's no more math to do. Yay! So that is equal to 17.5%. Again, we have another denominator that is not a factor of 10, 100, or 1,000. So if it is not, it's numerator divided by denominator. Add your decimals and 3 zeros. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 2 is 16. And 8 times 5 is 40. So here's our decimal that we need to write over here in this box. 0 and 625 thousandths. Whoops. 5/8 equals 0 and 625 thousandths. Now remember, as soon as you have your decimal, super easy to convert to your percent. All you have to do is bloop, move that decimal 2 places to the right. So that equals 62.5%. All right, last one. Okay, Yay, we have a denominator that is a factor of 100. So this one's going to be super easy. So we're going to get that denominator to be a 100. So 50 times 2 and 1 times 2. So that equals 4 and 2 hundredths. 4 and 2 hundredths. Remember, this is the tenths place, this is the hundredths place, so that 2 has to be sitting in the hundredths place. Percent. Now remember that 1 equals 100%, 2 equals 200%, 3 equals 300%, and so on. So if we're looking at the decimal 4 and 2 hundredths, what I'm thinking is that 4 equals 400% and 2 hundredths equals 2%. Put those two numbers together, that's 402%. Now, another thing you could have done also, remember once you have your decimal, we could have just, so I'm going, let me choose a different color so you can see where I'm at. So I'm going back up here to the 4 and 2 hundredths. Remember, another thing we could have done like we did up here was you can just slide that decimal 2 places to the right, and then you would have had your 402%. All right, that's it. So good luck on your little practice quiz today, and I will see you tomorrow.